Good afternoon, everybody. We've reached the magic hour of 8 o'clock, plus or minus. Looking around, we have all of our directors here except for Alan Scott, so we have a quorum. So I call the meeting to order. As far as the agenda is concerned, I'm going to suggest a change in the order and some information. Under the budget session, we have Chuck Chanel, our treasurer, going first, but the Long Range Planning Committee email survey funding has asked to come first. Before that, and unless no one has a problem, I'd like to make that change. So I need a motion to adopt the amended agenda. Moved by Andy Altman, seconded by Robert. All in favor? Opposed? Passed unanimously. The other thing here, I'll announce that obviously you've been around for a while. We are recording today, as we have in the past. And on the other issue, we moved the members' open forum to the end of the session rather than the beginning, so that we can move smoothly through our agenda today. So at this point, Tony is here. I just saw him. Take the microphone and give us your request.
Okay, we're on. Tony Lockowitz, Chairman of the Long Range Planning Committee. And with me is Lisa Berman, also Long Range Planning Committee. Just by way of introduction, our committee has requested $25,000, up to $25,000 in funding to allow us to conduct a survey of Oakmont residents. The purpose of the survey would be to get public input into our long-range plan and also to give the board information that you need to make long-range decisions and to prioritize your work and to prioritize future capital expenditures. Now, when I say we request up to $25,000, I want to emphasize the fact that we're very fortunate in having a number of Oakmont residents volunteer their time to help us put together the survey. Our residents have experience in public opinion polling and preparation of surveys. However, we can't expect that everything will be done by volunteers for free. It's too early to tell how many valid email addresses we have, for example, and there are other contingencies that we need to keep in mind in the event that we do need to pay some professionals to help us complete the survey. Right now, we're looking to do it 100% using computers, online, or with assistance that would enable residents who don't have computers or are not familiar with computers to participate in the survey. So at this point, Lisa has all of the detail that I don't. She's more of an expert in how the survey would be conducted than I am. But that was my introduction, and perhaps, unless you have anything to add, I would simply request that you place an item in the 2015 budget, allowing us the ability to spend up to $25,000. And of course, we will keep you informed as we go along as to how we're progressing. And when we get into the first part of next year, as you know, we're planning to conduct the survey in the first part of February. we should have a very good handle on exactly how much money needs to be spent and how much can be done by volunteers. Question?
Bob, can you say?
Tony, many times, it's not on, now it's on.
It's on.
When we have a request for funds, we often get an itemizations of projected costs. You know, the simple ones are how much paint is going to cost, how much labor per hour is going to cost, what those sorts of things. Would there be any, and maybe Lisa has that right there, but would we have some sort of estimate of itemized costs?
We do not have an estimate of itemized costs right now.
We have some general categories of where the money might be spent. As you know, we're making an all-out effort to get email addresses from Oakmont residents, which will not just be useful for the survey itself, but for many aspects of Oakmont business. Andy Altman is working really hard on this along with one of our committee members, Sue Dibble. But at the end of the day, we may need to hire some computer programmers or data entry support staff in order to get this all straightened out and make sure all the data is entered appropriately. We don't know yet. We're up to 2,500 email addresses, so it's very, very good progress. Another thing that we are already spending money on is Survey Gizmo on a monthly basis. We are paying them for access to the Survey Gizmo process, which will ultimately be the facility by which we conduct the survey online. Also, we are going to have to reach the residents who can't or won't use email. And I think this board knows, excuse me, I have a little frog in my throat. I think the board knows that the head of the School of Nursing at Sonoma State has created an internship program starting in January for her senior students. And their internship will involve things that include going door to door or on the phone for people who are unwilling or unable to fill out an email survey. That said, we don't know how many students we're going to have. We may have to hire a few people to do that. And then we also need to keep track of how the survey results are coming in. Again, we're hoping to have all volunteers, whether they're students or members of our committee or others, to do this. But again, there might need to be some professional data management for this. That's why we're saying up to $25,000. We're all very cognizant of the need to hold the line on expenses. And so far we've been able to do everything virtually for free. So we just are asking for this allocation in the event we may need to spend some money, and we, you know, the timing is of the essence since the survey starts in February.
Question?
What role will the Long Range Planning Commission play in the composition of the questions that appear on the survey, or will that be farmed out to a professional agency?
Oh no, we will not be farmed out. Right now we're in the process of forming focus groups, which will help us sharpen our focus, no pun intended, as to what types of questions we should ask in the survey, what is important to residents. You also know that in August and September we had listening sessions. We have detailed notes on what people are concerned about. So we're right in the process of trying to get as much input as possible into writing those questions. I wish I had a draft of the survey right now, because I can't wait to look at it myself. But we have professionals, I mentioned the 2 professional volunteers who spent their career writing surveys of this type. As soon as we get it, we'll review it at the committee level, and then we'll share it with the board. But it's really premature right now to say we're going to ask a question here and a question there.
Thank you.
We do have a research steering committee meeting on Friday, and 4 members of the Long Range Planning Committee are on that Research Steering Committee. And my understanding is that we're going to start seeing some questions coming forward. I would caution, though, that we shouldn't play editor, any of us, because this is a science, writing these questions so that they're not biased, so that they don't lead people to certain answers. And even though I have a pretty good familiarity with research, I don't think I'd ever presume to write questions. However, the subjects are becoming quite clear as we winnow down, and the focus groups will definitely give us a much clearer picture of what the topics are that we need to be delving into.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'm going to sound like a Dr. No here, and I don't mean to be negative, but it's going to sound that way. I think when we, as a community, start off going down the survey path, we could get 40% into it and say, oh boy, we need this or that. And wouldn't it be a shame to waste all the money we had spent up to now and the man hours if we didn't go through and do this extra stuff that might suggest it's not going to be 25,000, it's going to be 35,000. I just don't know that. But it seems, to my first point, having some sheet, like a spreadsheet, saying we anticipated the worst, or we anticipate nominally or normally that we're going to be using 25 hours of professional service for data collection or for professional help on forming questions, and if we had some sort of itemization, and I know it's not easy, but you've already mentioned some things already regarding the time you might use, and if you broke it down to an hourly cost, then we wouldn't be here saying 25,000 sounds fine, and then get further down the road and want to complete the project and find it's going to cost more. I told you it was going to sound negative.
I would really love to be able to give you a detailed, itemized list of so many man hours at such and such an hour. The only thing I can do, Bob, is to assure you that we will live within our budget, and we won't spend a dime until we come to you with a request for funding. We're asking for an earmark, if you will, a bookmark in the budget in the event that we do need the funds. Well, if you include this in your 2015 budget, it doesn't mean we're spending a dime. We'll come to you with all of the information, all of the detail, the hours, the number of people, etc., before we authorize it. You will authorize it, we won't. We're just looking for that earmark in the budget in the event that we do need the funding.
Any other questions? Hear a motion to this effect. The motion I would suggest would read that the board authorize the addition to the 2015 budget, an earmarked amount of up to $25,000 to cover the cost of the survey.
I would second that motion.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor? I don't see any opposition. That passed unanimously. Thank you very much for your work.
Thank you all very much.
Going on to item A, which was B. I turn this over to our treasurer, Chuck Chenault.
Okay, my able assistant here, Mike Noble, is going to run the computer for us today, and up at the top you can see he's got some blocks that will follow us as we go through this. This current budget that we're looking at has been recommended by the Finance Committee, and has a dues increase of $3.73 per person per month. Certainly, as we go through, I'm sure the board's going to make changes up and down, but the top block there will keep us up to date as to what changes to make. So we'll start on it. The very top line are the dues, and it again represents an increase of $3.73. For residents who didn't make the lump sum payment, that would be $61.73. And residents who did make the lump sum would be $49.73. We had total resident population of 4,617 people. So as we're going through, I won't stop and talk about every line, but if any of the board members have a question or a comment about a line, please let's talk about that. I'll just hit the larger items. So going down into the next section, the new member fees, $50,000, which is the same amount we've got. That's a bit above what we had in last year's budget, but it's well in line with what our current projection is for the year. Going on down, the trip revenue and expenses. Yep. Okay, we no longer have trips, but we do have on-site events that Marcia is now planning. And so we've got revenue of that for $35,000. We'll see later on we also have expenses for the same amount, so it's a break-even. The next line is for the telephone directory, and we expect income from that of $6,000 for this next year. Going on down into the funds transfer, each year for the last several, we've transferred $50,000 into the capital improvement fund. The next line is special assessment is for the loan repayment for the Central Activity Center at $12 per resident. The following line is the asset replacement funding, which is based on the professional advice of Tom O'Neill with this company, which represents an increase of $12,800 for the year, or 2.5% last year. The last line is the catastrophe fund, which covers insurance deductibles for earthquakes or fires and such. Any questions about any of those? Okay, going on into the the top several lines are insurance related. The third line down, earthquake insurance, actually decreased from our last year's budget. We had $42,000. Our projected annual was $30,000, so we're going with a budget of $33,000 this year. We're going down to casualty and liability. Again, it decreased a bit from last year's budget, but right in line with what our year-to-date or our projection is, $51,000, $2,000 decrease. The postage, we're projecting an increase up to $30,000, which is an increase of $4,700 or 19% of last year's budget. Copies actually going down from 12,000, primarily based on the iPads that the board's now using that we no longer have to make copies. That's an $11,000 decrease. Office supplies decreasing by $1,000 to $17,000. Going on down, the movies and music licensing is going up slightly, $9,300. The financial management services, CFM, is going up ever so slightly. Actually, it's exactly equal to last year's budget. It's based on our resident count of 4,600 people. Next line, or the little below that, CFM software access is also based on the resident count. IT services is KLH that supports the hardware, PCs, the printers, etc. in the office. It's going up considerably, $3,500 from last year's budget, but slightly less than what our projected annual is for this current year. Legal services going up significantly, $55,000 to $72,000, increase of $70,000, almost a 31% increase based on our projected use of legal services next year. Office rent going up slightly, 43,000. And then the last line in that section, the trip and event, again, $35,000, which is equal to the revenue. Okay, coming down to the next one, marketing and publicity. That's where we decided if the board approved the long-range planning survey, that's where we would put it. So Mike, you will put $25,000. And you can see up at the top, we've increased our dues $4. Yeah. Well, right now it's $4.80. This $25,000 that we just approved, increased the dues by 45 cents. Okay, going on to the next page. Payroll expenses. The admin salaries is going up from almost $424,000, which is up almost $72,000, which is 20%, based on the addition of one full-time person, one part-time person, and one part-time person going to full-time, plus some raises. The related benefits go up a little bit with the increased headcount. Going down to the maintenance, the projection I had gotten earlier was $400,640, which was an 11% increase. I was just informed this morning that it needs to go up a bit more based on some Cassie will have to explain what that is all about. But it needs to go up to $403,000. 403,360. Okay. All right, let's go on to the next page. The custodial expenses going up $5,500, $21,000, $26,000. The equipment maintenance is going down from $7,500 to $2,000. The general maintenance is going up from $7,000 to $32,000. That's based on removing some items from the asset replacement and moving them into the operating budget. Andy and ad hoc they did. Okay. Anything else really of significance in that section? Going on to the grounds.
Fran had a question.
Okay.
I'm sorry, is that
Just
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
No,
I just, on my copy, it doesn't give any figures for the custodial services. Why is that?
Well, custodial supplies, excuse me, is the line right below that, 51011.
Okay, so that, there's no personnel in there at all?
No, that's just supplies. Now, we previously, in 2012, we used an outside custodial service,
Yeah.
and we quit using that, and we did it in-house.
Oh, thank you.
That's why that money is carried across. Okay, so going on down to the grounds. For this next year's budget, we're combining the landscape maintenance account, median and 50th road maintenance into one account. So the combination of those two is $72,420. Last year's budget, it was under budgeted quite a bit. It was $47,000. Our expected spend for the year as of June, when this started, was $86,000. Currently, the projected, if you look at September year-to-date and annualize that out, it's $54,000. So, you know, we're way above last year's budget. We're under the projected as of June 30th. But if you take it on out to September and look at it, the projection is 51,000. So I think if we could lower that a bit. Asking if you'd like to comment on that.
Yes. I agree with you.
So how much should we lower that to? 60,000?
Yes. Yeah, that'd be acceptable.
Yeah. Okay, we're going the right direction. Okay, the next line, the miscellaneous landscape, that's primarily for the high weed mowing. Last year's budget was $30,000. We thought we wanted to increase it to $25,000. However, if you look at our September year-to-date, it's $25,000. And I don't think we're going to mow any more weeds the rest of the year. So again, that's one that we might be able to lower some. There's thinking of the West Rec Park course needing to be mowed more often or something.
Right, it all depends on the spring. I don't know what they did. And it all depends on the spring. And if we have a heavy rainfall, then everything will be need to cut twice. That's always the wild card.
So what do you feel comfortable with?
Is it supposed to be a heavy rain year?
The Farmer's Almanac.
We could back it down to the 46,980.
46?
Yeah.
Yes, 46,000. Okay, and the last line is tree maintenance, and again, having trees that are sick and fall down. We don't know, but probably 25,000 is a good number, even though it's $10,000 more than last year's budget. But you can see the projected has an increase above that.
Can't hear you, Chuck. Lost your sound.
All right, he's taking care of it. Okay, so going on to the
Chuck.
recreation. Oh, yes.
My total for, under the 2015 proposed budget on page 10, says $153,420. Up here on the chart, it shows $137,000.
We made some changes. We made 2 changes.
Mike, can you scroll a little?
Those are, what you're looking at on your printed copy is fixed. This is real time.
Yeah, we're making changes as we go.
Okay.
Okay, so going on to the recreation area expenses. The pool and spa supplies, $25,000 in budget last year. We're reducing it to $20,000 for the coming year. All the rest are staying fairly stable. Down toward the bottom, the bus per contract is going up about $600, $61,185. Going on to the next page, patrol and fire services. Fire system, our current run rate is at almost $5,500, so we're going up to $5,600 for that, which is an increase over the $3,000 budget for the current year. And the last page are the details of all the utility expenses. And of course, the biggest increase is the very top line there, the gas with CAC, which is based on the pool being open more than just during the summer, so we have to keep that. For total utilities, we're going up from 256,000 to 282,000, which is an increase of almost $25,000, 10%. If you look at the September year-to-date, project that out, we're going up by 3.7%. So that sounds more reasonable in line with what Bill just made. Okay, and then going down to the next one, the contingency is kind of our placeholder. That's our safety valve for things that we don't know about. All good homeowners associations, prudent management plugs in an amount to cover such items, and that's also used to balance out when we make our final decisions as to what changes we want to go to and what dues increase we want, and the difference to make it probably an even dues amount with the falls with this. So at this point, we've got the dues increase of $3.93. If anybody wants to add anything, subtract anything, make any comments.
So Chuck, just to underscore, you have the CIF funding continuing next year at $50,000
Yes.
in this budget.
Yes.
And you have the ARF funding at $524,800,
Correct.
which is the recommended amount of the reserve study specialist.
Rob?
Thanks, Chuck, for going through that. Very clear, very clear. When last we saw a summary, we had a slightly over $65,000 surplus in the operating fund. That was the end of September. Have you got anything for October yet?
Oh, no, not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, well, actually, Bob, the year-to-date surplus through September is almost $66,000.
Right, 65.6.
Yeah.
And Cassie, do you know of anything that's going to eat a lot of that up?
Well, what could eat some of it up is we did give the maintenance employees a living wage increase. And so that was going to be, what, was that between $7,000 and $9,000, Chuck? I believe it was $9,000. It was going to use up the funds that we already had. We were under budgeted in that category around $9,000. And to give them that kind of a raise, that was going to use up that funds. We'll probably be spending maybe $1,000 on a holiday party for our employees at the Quail Inn. Includes dinner and probably some kind of door prize.
You don't anticipate anything huge
No.
chunk coming out?
No, I don't. I don't anticipate something really large.
And I know things can happen. Things can happen. The reason I brought that up, and I think it's great we're discussing this as we are, because everybody can see what other people are thinking of. I'm not happy with things going over $3 per person per month. And I can't explain that exactly, other than it sounds like we were behind someplace. So I was going to propose that we bring it down under $3 by a combination of first going to the surplus when we know what it's going to be at the end of the year. And
Well, let me interject.
sure,
We've got to approve the budget today. So
Right.
we're not going to know what the surplus is going to be when we approve the budget.
that's why I wanted to bring up the second part, which is our contribution to the capital improvement fund that's budgeted for $50,000. Which is a nice chunk of money, but again, at the end of September, we had over $1.3 million in the capital improvement fund, and over the next couple of years, we expect well over $500,000 in capital improvement funds from the orchard. So I was thinking that we can use a combination of the surplus at the end of the year to turn it back into the operating fund. It's coming out of the operating fund, to turn it back into the fund going forward, and then using the capital, I'm repeating myself, using the surplus from the operating fund to bring it down, when we know that, and then what more we need to bring it down, use the capital improvement fund so we can bring it down to $3 or less. And if we come down I believe it's $68,000, we're down $1.22. Yeah, I think I know what's going to happen, but 303. And then and that was my original thought, take out all the capital improvement fund, but if we're going to have a big chunk of surplus at the end of the year, we can flip and use that first before the capital improvement fund. Does that make sense? Not that you agree, but does that make sense?
That's a line of thinking.
I'd like to present an alternate line of thinking. If you look at our overall dues, what we're paying for what we get here in Oakmont, it is way beyond a good deal. The things that scare me is if something comes up and you have to make it a large increase, people really choke on that. We're looking at right now at the 393 increase. I would propose that we add another $1.07 to that, make it an easy $5 a month difference. Let me put that into perspective here. One of the things that I'm concerned about is that in the past, we've been very fortunate that the developers that have built the orchards, Meadows, Whale, run over here, we've made pretty good money on that. It really didn't cost us a thing. But guess what? We're built out. There's no more of that coming. So in the future, we're going to have to make up the difference for that if we continue to do what we expect. And secondly, if you look at a figure of $5 a month, that's less than a hamburger over at the Quail Inn once a month. That's quite a bit less, like 75 cents less than one Big Mac for your grandkids. So I don't think that going to $5 a month is going to kill anybody, and I think it would put us in a much better position in the long run. I like to look at the big picture, and I respect what Bob presents here, but I'd rather just take a look at the big picture and round it up to make it $5 even, and we'll see what happens here.
I have a few comments. I'm in agreement on this capital investment funding of $50,000. I've been doing some research recently, and I'm not even sure we should be doing that, putting $50,000 into that capital investment fund. Basically, it's a reserve fund. If I read the Davis-Sterling Act, the Davis-Sterling Act says that you only use reserve funds for replacement, repair, etc. There's nothing in there about capital improvement. So I think generally what we've been doing is taking money, membership dues each year, calling them capital improvement funds, and then putting the money in there. And it really, I think capital improvement funds have to come from some other place. They either have to come from the contractors who are building the houses, from donations, or from assessments, special assessments. But I don't think you can have a capital improvement fund from the general funds. But that's solved today if we agree to eliminate the $50,000 of the capital improvement fund. But I think it's something we should investigate and see if I'm possibly right on that count. As far as the increase of $393, $5 is nothing big to me either. But $5 may be something big to some people. I'm presently inclined, even though I think we may have a shortfall next year, to go in between and go at $4 increase, just rounding it off to $4 instead of going 3 or going 5. And looking at the past history of our dues, If we go $4, we're talking about close to 7% increase in our dues. In 2008, we had a $4.50 increase. That was 11.6% increase. In 2009, we had a $6 increase. That was a 15.5% increase. And then in 2010, we had a $7.25 increase, and that was a 16.2% increase. But then after that, for some reason, in 2010, or probably 2011, we had no increase. In 2012, we had a 50-cent increase. And then in 2013, we had no increase. So historically, we've actually, increased the dues more, and then in certain periods, we've reduced them quite a bit. The other thing I found out that I hadn't quite realized is that when we did the Central Activities Center, I thought that was a special assessment at that time. And I came in late, and it turns out it's not. It's I just found this out, that it actually was just the dues increase each year. So what's happened is that much of the due increases that we've actually done over the years have been gone to pay for a new building and not to go into reserve for the purpose of, taking care of repairs and things of that nature. So I don't think it's bad if we go with a $4 increase. I would go with a $5 increase, but I think 4 would be preferable.
Frank, I say for the 3 years where we did 3, 4, and 5 to pay for the CAC and are paying for it, I can't remember ever having a $4 increase, let alone a $5 increase. And the other point I wanted to make, I may be wrong, but the other point I wanted to make was, and that's why I mentioned what those funds are at now, the Asset Replacement Fund, the Capital Improvement Fund. It's good we have these things in reserves, and I do agree with you, we should be properly reserve them, the Asset Replacement Fund. And if that comes up to some figure that looks very big, well, if the homework was done correctly, so be it. But I have a slightly harder time building up a CIF fund, whether it's from contractor fees or from dues. Obviously, if it comes from contractors, it's manna and it's a gift. But continuing to build those up without really having a specific project to fund is going to the community and saying, we don't know what this is going to be used for, but we want that money. Because we just want to play it safe.
I can tell you what it's going to be used for.
I have a few things.
Go ahead, Cassie. I think we have the same things.
One of the things that I want to talk to, address Frank's questions about a CAF fund. In the early years of homeowners associations, they didn't have that idea. But CAF funds are commonplace now in homeowners assessments and in their budget. And what reserve funds are for are replacing like items for like items. Capital improvement funds are for new projects or upgrades to old projects that have been unforeseen. So to look at an overview of the capital improvement fund, if you look at all the projects, and I'm not saying that all of these projects are actually going to come to pass, but you have at least a $700,000 project at the West Rec. It's probably going to cost more. We'll discuss that either at this meeting or at the next November board meeting. But then you have an investigation by a committee about what to do with the Burger Center. The Burger Center, I'm sure, is going to be a reasonably expensive remodel. So that could cost you anywhere from $500,000 on up. Then you have a request by the Landscape Improvement Committee for a new garden area out there. So that would be under a capital improvement because it's a new asset. So that is a minimum of $100,000. Then you have the switchgear replacement that's going on this year. That is going to be a minimum cost of $100,000. Then you have a proposal. It's not officially approved yet for the cost of these funds. But the pickleball and sports court area, if it stays the way it's presented to the city, if it's not revised or amended or reduced in any way, is going to cost at least $200,000. And then we're actually looking into an office renovation. Possibly that could come out of the asset replacement funds, but part of it could come out of the capital improvement fund. So the $1.3 million that you have now, if you did all of those projects in the next year or next two, you'd have $0. Now, yes, you would have the money that's coming in from the developer, but I'm sure in 2 or 3 years' time, there's going to be other projects in the pipeline. So to me, the big picture is you really need to be aggressively funding a capital improvement fund for those projects.
I'd like to add one more. As we progress on the West Recreation, we want to make improvements and repairs to the pool. And that's another item.
That would go under the asset.
Yes. So, Vern?
What I'm hearing, it sounds like, 3, 4 years, 5 years ago, we were willing to spend the money in increase in dues in order to build a new building, but at the expense of not putting money aside for repair of a facility that is rapidly becoming 50 years old. Now we've reached the point where we are spending and will have to spend to improve our 50-year-old building. It seems to me if we could spend $4+ 5 years ago for a new building, we should be able to spend $5 to maintain the existing building, which are getting older and older each year.
Thank you. Frank?
I'm getting convinced. But I'd like to reply to your question. When I came up with those figures about the increases, I went over to the office and had Kathy. She said, "Oh yeah, I've got a copy of the Oakmont Village Association dues history." So that's what I'm reading off of. Perhaps it's not accurate, but that's what I have. Okay.
Was there anything at $4 other than those 3 years?
Well, one was $4.50, one was $6, and one was $7.25.
What years were those?
Well, 2008 to 2009, it went from $38.75 per month to $44.75 per month. In 2009, it went from $44.75 a month to $52 per month.
Yeah.
So this is where I see the increases that I was referring to. Anyhow, based on what Cassie has said and all that, I had no strong objections to the $5 per month increase, as long as we know what we're doing and justifying. And I can see some big bills coming up for some very big repair jobs and all that. Now, all the things that Cassie mentioned will not necessarily, come true. We still have control over what projects are approved and that sort of thing. So I don't want to leave the impression that everything that she said is going to cost money and that we're going to approve it necessarily. So anyhow, that's the end of my comment.
Andy?
Thank you, John. I just have a historical fees aside and raises aside. I want to propose something from current perspective, looking forward a little bit. We have two issues here. We've got the operating budget, which I think we're pretty much settled on as far as what we see as the numbers up here on most of them, except for the section that contains the funding for the ARF and the CIF. The ARF this year has gone up a little bit, $20-some thousand from what we've been funding, what we were expecting to fund from prior years, based on some data changes we've made. to the components themselves. But then if you look at what's actually come out of the report for what should be funded over the next 3 years, year one, 2015, there's an awful lot of things on here that probably aren't going to happen in 2015. And in talking to Cassie, some of them are obviously at our discretion as well, such as like big number things like the East Rec asphalt paving. That's over $100,000. Does that need to be done in 2015? I don't know. So there are numbers in here that we're booking for, we're putting monies aside for or we have put monies aside for to pay out this year that we may not pay out from asset reserve fund itself also. When it comes to capital improvement, we've agreed to do a long range planning survey and a long range plan, a strategic plan. And what's going to come out of that are needs of the community going forward. And I'm pretty sure the projects we've already booked on here so far, which just listing them again, to your points, we haven't approved them yet, but you've got pickleball, the garden, the new garden out here, electric vehicles, some other things coming up. We also know we're going to get multiple ideas coming out of the survey and things that we've also heard. Therapy pools, not just the decking of the pool, but look at building one of our pools with a ramp to walk in as opposed to stairs, things like that. And they're going to cost a big chunk of money. So I think it's a cultural change right now that we're dealing with. We've long looked at these budgets as far as satisfying our current needs. I think we're in a position now as we're looking out strategically or want to look out strategically as a board to see what do we want to fund going forward, even though we don't have a project list. We don't want to constantly be in a position to say we want to do this, but we have to raise money in 3 years and then we can do it. We want to be able to be prepared because we're thinking of things strategically as it is right now.
Robert?
If we didn't contribute to the capital improvement fund in 2015, that would be $50,000. Currently out of $1,325,000, anticipating more funding from the developer of the Meadows, about 3.5 houses. If they sold that next year, that would be equal to about $50,000. By not contributing to the capital improvement fund this year, we don't diminish that fund greatly, in percentage-wise or dollar-wise, anticipating future needs. But we do and have the ability, with some of the surplus from the operating fund, to move the $5 down to $3.75 very easily, and it does not hurt the capital improvement from a material standpoint. And I think we don't, just in general, we don't want to manage Oakmont based upon the ability of quite a few people to pay that. Nor do we manage Oakmont from the standpoint that there are some people that any dues increase they feel we can't do either. What I'm suggesting is just a rather reasonable approach to keep the dues down as far as possible by not making a contribution to the capital improvement fund and using some of the surplus from the operating fund to put back into the operating fund. And that could have a $1.25 impact to the residents, and we're not hurting CIF to any material degree.
Brian, had a comment?
Yes, I would agree with what Bob has just said. However, I wonder if that list of projected projects is available to the rest of the board members, because I certainly haven't seen it, and I'd like to have some idea of what we should be planning for.
I'm sorry, Francis, I referred to it as a list of projected projects. What this is the OVA cash flow projection that we received from Chuck. And that's what has things booked on here, and those are the projects I was rattling off here. As far as the capital improvement fund, it does show a reduction of the capital improvement fund for starting at 2015 at just over $1 million and ending 2015 at $450,000. Yeah, about $450,000. So we do show a reduction of almost $700,000 for the year.
It's also true, too, that many of the items that Cassie mentioned and you mentioned is they're not going to be completed in the next year. There is not going to be a wholesale charge for extinguishing the balance we currently have of the capital improvement fund. For instance, the Burger Center, that's going to take some time to figure out what to do, what needs to be done, what we want done, and in what order we're going to get it done. And if it's going to be in one swell of poop, or is it going to be staged? Yeah.
John, just for what it's worth, Rossmore presently is charging $198 per month coupon. What that means is that each household pays $198 per month dues. So if you have one person in the household, they're paying $198 per month dues. If you have two people, they're paying $98 per month dues. We seem to be getting along quite well at about $60-some compared to them. So I think in terms of being competitive and reasonable, we're certainly in line.
Yeah, once again, I want to go back to what I brought up earlier. We know the Burger Center is coming up, and we know it's going to cost probably a fair amount of money. And one of the things that I understand is the responsibility of this board. And the bottom line is to be fiscally responsible to our community and provide the biggest buck we can, bang for the buck that we can. I think right now we live pretty close to the line sometimes, and it's time to look forward and put more money into the future. If we put it off, we're going to end up getting hit later, one way or the other. I just know it. You know, I've been around for almost 71 years, and this, you know, I'm not special in this room. Stuff always costs more than it costs. Put it in simple terms. I'd like to see a motion for a 5% increase, $5 increase.
John, could I add one other confusion?
Yeah, please do.
For that, the CAC will be paid off next year, about mid-year. So at that point, the $12 per month per person dues increase will go away.
Chuck, I checked at the office today, and according to Kathy, she gave me the date, and it was like May of 2017.
We've been making extra payments every month, about $7,000. And so we're paying it off early.
Okay.
We're paying the exact amount to the loan, or the loan that we're taking in residence, which is above the monthly payment.
I didn't know that.
And so do I hear a motion to what I suggested? Herm?
I make a motion that we increase the dues by the $5 you suggested.
Do we have a second? We have a second. Any further discussion? Take a vote. All in favor of $5 a month increase? We have 3 and opposed? We have 4. Okay. So, and 2 opposed. The motion carries.
So John, the next question would be, where does that money, where do I put that in the budget? Do you want to increase the funding to the ARF or CIF or?
Let's talk about that.
Hey,
CIF.
I am not the expert when it comes to
It's
finance.
got to go into the CIF.
Okay.
That's for the future project.
Into the CIF, Capital Improvement Fund.
I'm not sure about that, Cassie. I'm sorry. I think it probably should go into the capital reserve, or probably the, get all these acronyms mixed up, the asset replacement fund.
And why?
Pardon?
Why?
Because I have a concern that we cannot fund the capital improvement fund with dues, that it has to be an assessment.
No.
Is there any way that we could delay this to have it further investigated? No?
At my life?
Cassie's,
Well.
you know, I don't disagree with your input. However, I'd like to defer to Cassie, who's been hired with our expertise of many, many years handling this, exactly the same situation, and I feel confident that we wouldn't be led down the wrong road on this.
Oh, don't be that confident.
Well, she just bet her life.
I can check on that, and you can always, you're right, in the November meeting, if I am wrong and the capital improvement fund can only be funded by homeowners through special assessments, then put it into the ARM.
Well, let's put it this way, if we make a mistake, we can always fix it.
Right. At least we have the money.
Okay, so I guess the next issue, you got, does that satisfy things?
Well, have you
Chuck?
told Chuck where to put it?
I wouldn't put it in those terms.
I can find that out tomorrow.
But go ahead, and I'm just going to come on to the next.
If Cassie, just by chance, because I thought we already asked the attorney this
Yeah,
question
I did too.
last year. If we find out that we cannot place it in CIF, then we probably need to look at moving all of the funds over the last many years that we've moved in there out. Because we're not setting a precedent. We've been contributing
Yeah.
to CIF for many, many.
Okay, let's go on to the major task of the day, and that is to approve the budget as submitted.
With change.
With the change.
As amended.
Oh, yes, as amended, of course.
I
As the
move to-
live screen behind me shows.
I'd move to approve the budget as amended.
We have a motion to approve the budget as amended, and we have a second by Andy. Any further discussion? All in favor? Got 1, 2, 3,
Or
4. Opposed? 2 in opposition, and please, as our new policy goes, as this goes to the previous one too, is we note the names and how they voted. I think that's pretty much a wrap for today. Oh, pardon me, it's not. We have a public forum open now. There's the microphone. If anyone has something they want to say, this is your chance. This could be a new record.
Oh, come on here. You got a question.
I've been told that, because I'm on the communications committee, that I've given up a little bit of my First Amendment rights, but I think I'm going to be complimentary, so I don't think anyone will complain. I just wanted to thank you for your financial stewardship of Oakmont and your wisdom in recognizing that we're going to have big expenditures down the road and not be like Sonoma County that's trying now to make up for all the deferred maintenance, pensions, roads. You are looking ahead and saying, we know what's coming and we're going to be prepared. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, do we need a motion for adjournment? We just do it. The meeting is adjourned.